Hey everybody, so this is not a vlog in the true sense of kind of a day-by-day video diary, but I needed a place to kind of upload my recent presentation. It's called Africa to the Arctic, and I've been presenting it at a whole bunch of places throughout the States. I'll be doing it in London and then in more places in the States, hopefully Joburg and Cape Town soon as well. But at Adorama in New York City, the guys recorded it and they streamed live to Facebook. I've pulled that off and I'm going to include that in this vlog. So just as an intro, the idea behind the presentation was Africa to the Arctic. So it's a visual journey from Africa, South Africa, all the way up through all the countries that I've visited in the last 2 years, all the way up to Svalbard. Now, the cool thing with this particular presentation is that the audience kind of can take it in any direction. It's not photographic technical. I'm not talking specifically creative, but if it's presented to a group of photographers, those questions will kind of lead the direction in which I take it. If it's more for travel people, we discuss more things like destinations, animal behavior, and so on. So it's been a very, very fun presentation for me because it goes all over the place. And if you've ever seen me present, I don't like working off bullet points and text and stuff. Image and talk. So there's a lot of storytelling. There's some photography in here. So that's about it for me for this one. So from here on, I'm going to fade into the presentation that I did in New York now a couple of weeks ago, and I hope there's some chunks of value for you in there. I think if you're looking for a place to travel, or you're looking for some ideas on photography, or even just visual inspiration, I always say that you have to kind of feed your photographic mind, and that's going to help your photographic voice when you start producing your own images. So hope there's something in here for you. I'll see you in the next episode. Enjoy. We are live. Okay, we're doing this on Facebook as well, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, hey guys, good evening. My name is Jerry. I am from Wildeye. Thank you for coming out. We were just discussing now whether it's cold or not. You guys apparently think no. Dixon, is it cold in this place? Yeah. So much. So just as I'm going to show you some pictures of him later on as well. Dixon is from Kenya. He's our camp manager in the Masai Mara. This is his first time out of Nairobi. So we brought him to this place, and for a place that probably averages like 25 degrees Celsius year-round, this is rather fresh for him. Right. So, oh, Isaac, I didn't even see you in the corner there. Isaac's our director in Wildeye East Africa as well. So he's got a big jacket on, so he's good. Right. Before I get into a little intro just on what we're going to be discussing about and who I am, where I come from, quick show of hands from here. How many of you have been on a safari to photograph wildlife anywhere in the world? Okay, and Africa specifically? All the same. Nice. Who would like to? It's pretty cool. All right. And just I just want to check. Canon shooters, hands up, please. Canon shooters. Okay, Nikon shooters. Can you guys just split up, please, and sit together? Because it's normally a thing. No. Get up. Go for it. Right. The idea behind this is we're going to take it wherever you guys want to take it. What I'm going to show you is images that I made during the last year and about 2 months. We started a company about 8 years ago. It's called Wildeye, and the idea with it was, and still is to take the intimidation out of photographing wildlife, specifically in groups. If you look at it many, many years ago, right, you had to have a 600 lens, otherwise people would frown. It's like, oh, what is that? Right? You had to have big glass. It was, you had to be kind of proficient with your photography, you to know exactly what you're doing, otherwise you weren't made to feel welcome. Unfortunately, there's still people and companies out there that kind of work that way. Now, I have to lead with this. Every single image in here, like I said, was taken in the last, call it 14 months, and I'm very proud to say that on every single one of these, this is not for myself, this is on trips which I hosted with clients, photographic safaris, photographic private guided trips. On every single one of them, my clients outshot me, bar not one trip. Because even though I think there's 1 or 2 decent images in here, you guys can judge, my goal is not to be a professional wildlife photographer. My job is to go into the field and help you and all of you, or whoever comes with me, to make good images. That's the goal. So I'm very proud that if I had to start going down the road of images that I saw my clients get, and I saw the moment, click, there it is, and you think, shit, that would have been cool, But I'm proud of that because that's what we do. I've got 1 or 2 videos in here Two specifically. One you might want to close your eyes for, but we can get to that later on. And on those things, I'm going to talk you through what my client sitting next to me saw and photographed, and I left the visuals on the table. But that I'm proud of, because that's what we do. Now, how many of you would consider yourself a pretty decent photographer? Mid-range, just kind of, I'm good at what I do. If you want to stand up, if you sit down, Jono. Okay. The idea with this, again, I haven't put any tech or lenses or stuff in here. I'm going to try and get a bit of a Q&A at the end. Anything. Photography, nature, destinations, animal behavior, Lightroom, whatever you want to take it to. However, if there's something on the screen that you have a question, pop the hand up, nice and small and intimate, and we'll go there. So we're going to travel, starting in South Africa, we're going to travel all the way up to Svalbard. Just show of hands for me, who knows what Svalbard is and where it is? Okay, this is probably most in a group that we've seen. People they hear this word and they don't know what it is. So we'll look at that. So, Wild Eye, that's the company that we started. The idea, and every one of these destinations that I'm going to show you is where we host safaris. Some of them are private guided, one-on-one. You say to me you want to see a pangolin, a gorilla, and a leopard, which is a very strange combination, but I can make that happen. We put it together. And it's based then on your requirement, your budget, and so on and so forth. But when we get to the field, it's all about the photography. However, it's more. And for those of you that are into wildlife, I hope you understand this. It's not about the photography, wildlife. It's about the experience of the photography. Right. My wildlife photographers, put your hand up again if you photograph wildlife in the wild. Okay. Leave your hands up. How many of you have, in an amazing sighting, put your camera down and just enjoyed what you see? Because that's where the gold is. That's where the gold is. We're going to talk about a little bit about the Great Migration. We know what it is. Great Migration, wildebeest, river, crocodiles, chaos, awesomeness. Yeah? I've had many, many occasions where someone comes to our camp to photograph the Great Migration, and they are super excited. And then we get on the first afternoon, as luck would have it, there's wildebeest, there's a river, and things starts happening. And it's complete panic, and they don't know what the hell to do. People think photographing one thing's easy, so photographing many things should be easier. The more things there are, the more difficult it becomes creatively and compositionally, right? So people freak out, and I'll say to them, listen, put your camera down, have this Tusker, which is a great bear in Kenya, have this Tusker, and just look at it. And they'll say, no, but I'm here for the photography. Yes, but if you look, and this is for wildlife in general, if you look at it first and you understand what you're looking at, when you photograph it, it becomes easier. It's about animal behavior. It's because what your eye is attracted to. That's what we're going to try and go for. And we're going to start in South Africa. I'm going to ask you all the time, who's been to South Africa, please? Yes. On safari specifically? Give me ideas. Which reserves did you go to?
Went to Sabi
Sand.
and around
It's a great area. Nice. Anybody else? Destinations where you've been? Mala Mala. Jono was the last. That's an amazing destination.
Kruger.
Kruger? Anybody else? Okay. All of those. The cool thing with South Africa, and we're talking from a photography point of view now, just show you where it is, just in case. Yeah? Some of the reserves you guys have mentioned. Sabi, Madikwe, Kalahari, and Cape Town. Cape Town's nice bolt-on photographically even. Nice landscapes. Penguins are pretty cool. Yes, we have penguins in South Africa. Jackass penguins, yay big. And you can get this close to them. So photographically, it's pretty sweet. You can literally put your 1635 in their faces. They peck, but it's great shots. It's great shots. Even with this, pretty cool photography. The nice thing with South Africa as a wildlife photographic destination is the ability to do two things. Number one, you can off-road in the private reserves, which means if we're driving and we have a leopard there, you can get closer and position compositionally, so you can make your images. Yeah? Where in a lot of other countries, especially up in East Africa, you can't because it's a self-drive thing. So people might be driving around. If you have every person going to self-drive, mayhem. Right, so the private reserves, photographically speaking, you can go off-road, you can make your images, you can also do night drives with spotlights, which makes for very interesting photography. Anybody done that before? It's pretty cool, yeah? It's a ridiculous experience. So, I'm going to start easy here. What I'm going to explain to you now is probably one of the highlights on any safari. By show of hands, anywhere in Africa, how many of you have woken up at 4:30 yeah, or you've been woken up, you've gone down to the lodge or the camp, you've grabbed a cup of coffee, and you've sat watching the sun come up. That is the good stuff. Now, this kind of stuff you can shoot from the deck. It's super simple. The one thing that we'll get into the wildlife now, but what people don't do enough of, I believe, on photographic wildlife travel throughout the world, is photograph other things than wildlife. The landscapes, the people, the experience. Because, and I'll show you some stuff later on, where people are going to remember the experience way after they remember the nice leopard sighting. Okay, we'll talk about those. So, get into this, some photography. Again, if you guys have any tech questions, lens, whatever the case is, we'll throw it out. So, the reason I put this in, just as an easy in, lose the background for me, lose the mom. Bland, boring shot then. There's no depth. It's pretty boring. But because we were in South Africa, this was in Mala Mala, actually. At Mala Mala, we positioned. We looked at it, we thought three-dimensionally, what if we drive around that side because then the background will change? And immediately, you have something a little bit more interesting than just another half-silhouette baby giraffe. Phenomenal. I find these things phenomenally difficult to photograph. I don't know if you've tried this. Giraffe, we think it's great, and you want to photograph them so badly, but landscape-wise, and then they're tall, and you do this, and it's a tough thing to photograph. Great to watch, kind of difficult to photograph. If you want to see and photograph these things, Mala Mala, Sabi Sabi, Londolozi, those kind of reserves, they're known for the density. Since the 60s, these animals are used to vehicles driving around. She was far off. She was kind of in the distance in a tree. And we could then off-road and get closer, literally from here to the back of the room, where the Nikon sign is. That's it. That's a 7200mm lens. Spent about 2.5 hours. And we didn't photograph for 2.5 hours. We photographed probably 30 shots because she was half asleep. But that's the thing. You can wait and just let it play out. Beautiful place to photograph big cats. Yes? So the leopard one was a 70-200, and it was probably around about a 150. It wasn't maxed. And that's full frame. I don't like to crop much. We'll talk about that as well. But close. I mean, for those of you that have been to South African safaris, you'll know I can have a leopard where you're sitting. It is that close. It is safe. We can talk about safety. But photographic-wise, it comes down to lens choice as well. If you're going to come to Southern Africa, South Africa specifically, because you can off-road and get close, you don't need this. You can get away with a 300 is probably your prime kind of spot to shoot from. 7200, always, anywhere in the world for wildlife, always take a 7200. You go to East Africa, which is much bigger visuals, you want 600, 500, 400, and so on. But yeah, this is at 200, 7200, not even maxed out yet. Yeah, same with this. This is also, this was happening, I mean, where Seth is sitting on the side. The cool thing is, in Southern Africa, in South, there's only 3 vehicles on any given time in a private reserve at a sighting. The guys are on the radio. What did you find? I found lions eating a buffalo, right? Cool, we're going there. So your photographic hit rate goes up dramatically, which is awesome. I'm going to ask this question now because we're going to go deeper into it a little bit later. How many of you have photographed, first question, predators on prey interaction, i.e. kills? Okay. How many of you would like to photograph that kind of interaction? Okay. Maybe. It's often a thing like, I'm not sure I can. I've had people behind their camera photographing in the Masai Mara 3 or 4 lions on a zebra, and she is crying. Not the zebra. I'm sure she's as well. But the lady is crying, but she's photographing. It's kind of passion versus compassion. Passion for photography and compassion for the animal. I'm going to show you some videos later from the Masai Mara, and I'm going to ask you that question again. It's very visual, but I shall warn you before. All right. These kind of things. Early mornings, Mala Mala. Again, if you want to photograph big cats in their natural environment doing ridiculous things, look at Mala Mala. Okay. Also, just for anybody afterwards, I do always do this here as well. If you want this presentation after the fact, I'll give you my email later on. I'll mail it to you. So the names and whatever the case is, or the images. All right. Lions, all the time. Mala Mala. This guy. Right. It's called the Charleston male. How many of you have seen... Who's on Facebook? Hands up. right? If we take all of our Facebook accounts, add them together, times it by about 5, he's got more followers than us. They have Facebook pages, these things. That's how famous they become, right? So he got a kick in the face by a giraffe when he was hunting. You see the tooth's out, right? I saw this the first time, and this is kind of how you start thinking about wildlife. When I saw a picture of this animal, I thought I have to go and see him immediately and photograph him. Luck would have it, we were running a wildlife photography workshop at Sabi Sabi, next door to Mala Mala, and I thought, this is the chance. You're so excited to photograph this thing, you pick up your camera, look at him, and it's like, no, just wrong, this tooth. So, made for interesting visuals. We spent an entire morning with him. Now, the tooth was still alive. There were still nerve endings, it was still dripping saliva and whatever, so it's alive. How long was he like this? About a year? Jono, you remember? It was a long time, hey, that the tooth was hanging out. Maybe he was grumpy because of that. We don't know. But on this particular morning, absolute mayhem. He was fighting with females, with his brother, with a young. It was just chaos. But photographically, these are the things that happen if you can spend time in a sighting. Those of you that have been on safari, I hope you haven't experienced this. You get to a sighting, if you've driven by a guide or a photographic guide, they'll get to a sighting, they'll say, there's a lion. It's 10 years old, it mates, it's 3.5 months gestation, and then off you go. Bye-bye. Gone. Because that's how a lot of it works. You don't spend time. If you want to create strong wildlife and nature images, patience and time in the field. And then things like this can happen. I think there was the previous morning in the rain. It's about a 1/125th shutter speed. Rain for me out in the wild, 1/250 freezes. 125 starts giving you a little bit of streaking in the rain, and about 1/60th you get proper streaking. But obviously for the photographers, you'll know the subject has to stay still based on your kind of shutter speed, yes? Make sense? Pretty cool. But never, ever, ever. I've had this once or twice on trip. Sitting, the rain comes down, people start packing stuff up. Zip it up, close, what are you doing? No, the gold is about to happen now. Who's shot in the rain? It's amazing. Photography in the rain for wildlife is ridiculous. Absolutely a beautiful thing. Leopards, again. Now, I'm going to quickly, I should have asked this in the beginning, but I'm going to ask quickly. Do any of you follow me on Instagram? This is going to hurt. Ah, yes. Like 5. Awesome. Thank you. Now, the kind of stuff, just from a wildlife photography point of view, images like this. So she's got a hurt eye, right? We think it was with the fight with a male a couple of months before. She's 100% fine. I've had her for a whole day, literally at Mala Mala, taking care of her youngsters, up a tree, down a tree with a kill. You post an image like this. We get hate mail on Instagram. Why don't you help her? You should be helping the animal. So from a wildlife photography point of view, and we'll talk a little bit about this when I show you a video from the Mara later on, is our job, our privilege and pleasure is to photograph animals in the wild doing what they do naturally, whether we are there or not. But there is still a very big part of people that want to come on safari. We're at the travel show now in Los Angeles. Can they touch this? I want to come and see gorillas and elephants, but I want to touch them, please. No. Just no, you can't. You may not. But those are the kind of things, because of Instagram and these things, people say, oh, but you're petting this and that and there. We need to define here, wildlife photography. These things happen. If we weren't there, that would still have happened. So we need to leave it. We just have the privilege of documenting that. Happens all the time. Night stuff. Phenomenal. So some of you have done this in the evening. Now, Laurie, we're going to be doing this in April. It is ridiculous, right? The idea of sitting, you've seen African night skies, yeah? Canopy of stars, it's beautiful. That you sit, you turn the lights off. You cannot see a thing. You just hear the lions drinking. Then you turn the spotlight on, or, depending on the reserve, another vehicle can spotlight for side lighting, and you get stuff like that. How many of you would be comfortable, photographically speaking, to shoot something like this? Yeah? Not too bad. People freak out again. It's like, oh my God, what do I expose for? Do I spot meat? Do I do this? It's actually easier than you think. But the visuals you can get, same thing. Driving along, stop, boom, there she is.
Does the light bother them at all at night?
It's a very good question. Does the light bother them? So that comes down to ethical guiding. If I take a big spotlight and put it in your face, you're going to get a little pissed off as well, yeah? So diurnal animals, animals that are awake and operational, if you will, in the day, they don't have a protective layer of cells in the back of the eyeball. Nocturnal animals do. It's called a tapetum lucidum, which protects the fovea, which is where the nerve endings come in. Now, even if it's a lion, or these things, these owls, right? The nerve endings are protected, but you're still not going to keep it there. So we'll be driving along, and the guy finds something. You're not going to just shoot and hope. You'll stop for a second. Okay, are you ready? Quickly up, meter, get your settings, drop again. Okay, ready? Boom. So you're not going to keep it there. With this previous one here, for example, they bounce the light. So they'll kind of put the light more in the front, bounce it up so it doesn't bother them so much, and then if necessary, maybe go up and down. Nocturnal animals, good, but not keeping. Diurnal animals, not at all. Like giraffe, for example. Their eyesight's the most important thing. Height-wise, that's what they kind of use. Never. Just don't. So, but it's a big thing on ethical guiding. Story, this is on Facebook, but that's fine. It's true. This happened in the past, 12, 15 years ago, before the days of ethical guiding and proper qualifications. Lodges, private reserves, not some of the stuff you'll probably have ever heard of, they would herd animals with a light and keep the light on them while animals are hunting. Not cool, right? Luckily, that doesn't happen anymore. Those people have all disappeared, but it shows you that that's a bad thing. So if you're going to keep it on it, it's wrong. Yeah?
When you go to the camps that you go to, do you bring your own lights? Because what I found, some of the lights put up the yellow color. Are there special bulbs that you should be using?
Absolutely. So what you have is, like you said, it's white light or orange light. We work with X amount of lodges back home that we prefer as partners because of the way they guide, the type of lights they have, and so on and so forth. So we don't take our own, but I know when I'm going in what we're dealing with. So if you come with me on a trip, I'll know if we go to Mala Mala, that's kind of what they have. What you can do as well, if it's a too orange or too warm light, is literally on the first night, spotlight a tree, meter, set a Kelvin reading on your white balance, and then go from there. But yeah, we don't take our own. Some places you might see also put a red filter in the front, which it's terrible for photography, but they do it because of the doesn't bother the eye thing. But yeah, so we work with lodges and we kind of meter Kelvin from there. Yeah? Now, okay, we've seen this little guy. Backlighting in the evening, same thing. You cannot get these in all the reserves because you need the ability to do two things. Number one, maybe off-road, position for the leopard. And number two, have someone behind spotlight at the correct angle and time and so on. So this was, I think, at Londolozi, which is again next door to Mala Mala. We saw this leopard, following him for a while, and one of my guests said we should try and get some backlight stuff, but it was just our vehicle. So we radio into the lodge, can you please send the standby ranger? He brings a vehicle behind spotlight magic. It's golden. Really strong visuals. Same thing, leopard up a tree. Minimalistic type shooting. It's all about the shadows and the light. Now, a little video here. So this is my client's first time ever shooting evening stuff, ever. Now, if you've never done it before, and suddenly it's like, it's already a little bit of a thing, right? Now, in this instance, we're sitting on the vehicle, there's 300 buffalo at a waterhole. So we hear something on the side, kind of in the grass, 9 lions coming around the vehicle. We're about 50 meters from the waterhole. These lions walk past. Now, this was not my best moment of guiding, right? Joni asks me, listen, do I think they're going to hunt? And they weren't in hunting. When a lion hunts, behavior-wise, the head drops, the shoulders pop. They kind of do the stalking thing. These things were just walking along. I'm like, nah, next moment, off they go. Whap, they're into the crowd, right? So this is Joni's first evening with a spotlight. There's 9 lions. There's 300 buffalo. So I shot this video I'm going to show you now on the Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II handheld. Great stability. Just videoing while I'm trying to say to her what's happening.
Get that young one. Oh, they snatched the baby.
Just watch. So they run in.
Just
they
watch,
take a youngster
Joni.
now,
So there's something going on.
and then they run with the youngster
Oh, they've got
into
the youngster.
water hole now.
Oh, into the water.
You're joking.
Now, if you've never, number one, seen a hunt, number two, you've never photographed stuff with a spotlight, there's a small degree of panic that sets in. Yes? So this kept going on the next one. So long story short, I've got just 2 little clips, and then we'll show you some images from there. The problem was this, and this is where shooting more comes in. Our tracker, the guy that sits in the front, was holding the light, but it's happening everywhere. So you don't have time to meter. You don't have time to settle in because this is a mobile sighting with spotlights. Eventually it settled down, and from here we could start shooting a little bit more because the lines were anchored. Now you can meter.
Okay, you keep dead still. Focus on the lines for me, Joni, and hold it there.
Now she started getting some ridiculous images. One of those instances where she outshot me dramatically, even though it was her first time, because she could settle in, meter, and work shutter speed to get the exposures right. If you're keen, afterwards, send me a message on Instagram. I'll share her profile. Go and look at some of the images she got from this. Later on, now the buffalo kind of started pulling back because it's game over. Yeah, the lion started fighting in the water, but still, it was a static
so shoot
sighting.
him when he's coming in.
Now you're shooting one static thing, you can settle and photograph from there. This happens on every single trip I run. No, it does not. This is kind of unique, yeah? Imagine for yourself now the photographs you can get with shadow and light playing together. This is right at the end now. This was about an hour and a half total.
No, I think the buffalo
memory card after memory card after memory card, right?
Okay, try shoot, yeah.
Underexposed. Get that middle part just popping. The one on the top left, I think, comes over. The image, I mean, literally, you can't hear. I think she was shooting mirrorless. It was pretty quiet. The images she got out of this was insane. This is some of my outtakes, right? She got the hero shots because what must I do? They're coming closer, shutter speed, whatnots. But the visuals that you can get in the evening is absolutely insane with a spotlight. It is ridiculous. Just stunning stuff. This was unique. But even if we find a big male lion on safari, and you say to me, I want the rim lighting shot or the backlit shot, in South Africa we can make it happen because of how you can operate. So if you're planning your own trip, think South Africa if that's what you want, yeah? Stuff like this, dime a dozen, it is safe, yeah? Who would be nervous in this situation? Like, I'm gonna die, yeah? It's pretty, I've only lost 2 guests on safari ever. And no, joking, no guest lost. This is safe, 100% safe. You don't drive up to if you were an animal, I'm not gonna drive up to you and stop. Why? It's a threatening thing. You look where they're going, you kind of plan accordingly. They're gonna walk there, you're gonna walk there. I'm going to come and park here and have you walk towards me because the animal has the choice. Then you can get some pretty incredible visuals. That's Jack. Jack is a hero, right? He didn't blink for about 45 minutes. Wild leopard, it came to that, we were parked here, this was on a workshop we had, it lay down in the shade over there. But as we were talking and the guys were talking, the sun moved a bit and the leopard moved closer. Suddenly you realize, oh, and I mean, this is close, right? The people on that vehicle didn't get any images because they're behind. We got amazing stuff. But this is the kind of stuff you should photograph more of. The people, the experiences. Many, many moons ago, my wife, I kept on coming back from trips. My wife said, listen, where are the people pictures? I'm like, no, I don't do that. It's like, no, but you need to. So I gave her a camera down the line. It's still in the box. So she's not doing that. But Kenya changed my way of thinking about people, but I'll get to that later on. South Africa, definitely an option. Zimbabwe, who's been to Zimbabwe? Which reserves?
I've only been to Victoria Falls.
Vic Falls? Monopools? Nice, good combination. So Zimbabwe have those 2 places, and they're pretty unique in that Monopools and Wangi. This is, I think, end of last year, October. We'll talk about timing. It's all about the elephants. Monopools and Wangi is all about the elephants. What happens is towards the end of the year, to end of the dry season, right? You're looking at about September into October. Very dry. Notice, nothing much to eat at the bottom. So the elephants all start hanging around under these trees, right? In order to get the seed pods down. So only food towards that time of year. So photographically speaking, if you think about it creatively, you want dimension. You want height in an image. Often we get a wildlife image which is just flat. There's nothing height-wise. Now suddenly you can start creating height. The cool thing here as well is the on-foot experience. Monopools is an on-foot place where you can walk. Now, walking, so one of my clients who's carrying, I think this was a 200, 400, she had Olympus iPhone. She was comfortable, iPhone carrying, right? England got a bit tired. But it's one of the few places where if you go and walk, I can take you on a walk in pretty much any reserve, but if you walk, it's not about getting close to animals. Photographically, it can be difficult because they run away. Mana Pools as a walking destination for photographing from foot is phenomenal because the elephant's behavior is so predictable. There's nothing on the, look here, it's dry, dry, dry. There's nothing else to eat that time of year, October. Very hot though. So the adult elephants will walk from one tree to the next, to the next, to the next. So if you sit and just watch, you position yourselves, and again, they come to you. So photographically on foot, golden. You can shoot 16:35 sometimes and fill the frame. It's pretty neat. But the cool thing for me there is the framing. Is being able to use the forest, which is just beautiful for framing, for height, for depth. The most difficult thing in any photograph to create, especially in wildlife photography, is depth. Now suddenly you've got layers and layers of depth into the image. Beautiful place to photograph. Mana Pools. Lions they have on foot as well. It's pretty neat. Again, you're not going to get this close. Please don't. It's not great. But distance-wise, that's on a 300mm lens, uncropped. I just squished it in a bit. So you didn't pull it in further. What is nice, though, if you're into golden light, we all are, right? That it's just amazing. What happens is if you look at this previous one, how dry it is, right? The elephants walk through the forest. They kick up dust, not much wind. The dust hangs. So then early mornings, that's what it looked like. I kid you not. Early morning, light comes through the dust, and that happens. I will photograph a squirrel in that light, right? That's how good it is. You position yourself, and you just wait. Then this. Oof. Luxury lodge, on your deck, elephants. It's right there. The cool thing at this one here is, it's called Somalisa in Wangi. Anybody been to Somalisa? Cool lodge, worth a look. So they've got the big water hole at the back, so you can shoot your 600 from the deck. And then they've built this trough thing next to the deck. So behind this is the swimming pool, behind that is the bar, behind that is the restaurant. So you can gin and tonic your way with the elephants. It's pretty sweet, right? But in the evening, I haven't got one, so I didn't put it in because I was helping Joni and them to get their shots, is you can put up a tripod, even low angle, shooting the stars, because the elephants come in the evening as well. Exposed for the sky, 15, 20 seconds, pop a flash when the elephants are in front of it. It is pretty sick. So you need to think photographic potential. If you want to go on a safari or a wildlife travel trip, think of the potential that you can make. That's the win. Wangi, dry season, very open, flat, nothing. Amazing photography, and also up close. You guys remember Cecil, the lion story way back? Yeah, that's where he's from. So this is Wangi. I think this might have been part of his pride. Now, I saw a story recently again. Cecil's pride when I was there, this was end of last year. So just before then, there was this news going around on Facebook that on the anniversary of Cecil's death, the whole pride came back to the closest watering hole and they drank together remembering him. I kid you not. And then everyone's like, oh, that's so amazing. No, it's not. It is 100% coincidence. They just came to drink. But the one good thing that came out of that whole thing is the awareness. Not going to discuss feelings on it because we might get aggressive, but the awareness that that created, I think, pretty cool thing. Zambia, anybody? Yes, yes, more Zambia. Where did you go in Zambia? Vic Falls, okay. We'll talk about Vic Falls in a bit. Zambia is just a little bit further up, and then South Luangwa. Now, highest, even though the Sabi Sands is incredible for leopards, because they're more habituated, you can get closer, you can off-road, this is the highest density of them, and you can also do night drives. Depending on which lodge or camp you stay at, you might not always be able to communicate that well, because they don't always have radios, but it depends. But up close to these things, incredible, but this is the win. The win in South Luangwa is the way that from the dry season, if you put your camera on one spot and photograph a time-lapse 365, it's going to be ridiculous how different it is. Because this time of year, you and I can walk through here, it'll be up to your knees. A couple of months later, you can't even see where the river starts and ends. It's just water everywhere. So the diversity you can create photographically. Go there in October, go there in March. You'll be amazed at the different types of images you can get. Now, if you're a photographer trying to put together a portfolio, what do we struggle with? Is diversity. You always have the same thing. It lacks depth. It lacks dimension in your portfolio. One place can produce multiple different types of images. South Luangwa is one like that. Now, this isn't interesting. Just, I put this up again. I mean, she was tired, but she was like kind of where you guys are. Again, so off the vehicle. This is probably around about a 70 mil, like in. Look at all the scarring on her. She's banged up. Behavior-wise, so what you have here, they were interacting with another pride all the time. Dry season, the river drops, a little bit of water, and these prides are kind of settled. They've sorted their stuff out throughout the year. Rainy season comes up, they all move away because they don't want to swim all the time. When they come back and the water drops, they have to re-establish kind of their areas, which means if you are there at the time, interaction. Beautiful to photograph. Interaction, probably the favorite thing to do. It's also where walking safaris started. Norman Carr and Robin Pope, if you want to Google those at some stage. That's the original guys from a walking safari point of view. Again, photographically not amazing, depending if you're lucky. Experience-wise, being on foot there, golden. But you can get good images. High key. Why did I decide to go high key on that? Because look at the sky. That's midday. That's like 12 o'clock. I'm stopping for drinks. There's no detail in the sky, so work with what you have. Yeah? You can either, like some people say, once it gets too bright, go home. Sit at the lodge. No. I want to get out. Shoot with the light you have. So in here, in this instance, those two males were fighting, necking, right? Overexpose, and do something like that. So shoot with what you have. It's almost like the female. They literally stopped, looked at the female, checked it, and then carried on. But you can get some amazing images in there. Dry season. If you and I had to walk past here in the wet season, you wouldn't see a thing. It's just thick bush. But the framing potentials, dry season in Africa, really photographically, definitely worth it. Amazing place. You could sit next to the river in South Luangwa and do this 24/7 during the dry season. Why? Territories in the river, fine. Less water, smaller territory, and so forth, until they have no choice but to keep on doing this day in and day out. It's not always blood and guts, but the interaction from a photography point of view is amazing. Yes? So in here, you're looking probably like September, October. Most of the camps in South Luangwa closes on 1st of November. Because then the rainy season comes and then everything just washes out. There are open ones, but August, September, October, really good. Photographic speaking, phenomenal. The cool thing here, because it's a pretty big place and there's not as many vehicles if you know where to drive, we found this girl on her own. We had her for 24 hours on her own. Photographically up the tree, down the tree, with a spotlight, without a spotlight, nobody else. Next to the road, photographically is just amazing. It is absolutely beautiful. And this last one from South Luangwa, it's just a weird thing because of the levels. Dry riverbed, you're driving along the side, elephants there, lion walks past, you just think, oh, okay, cool, let's just grab it. This is a grab shot. That's like a point and pray. It's like click and carry on. That's the kind of stuff you can get. Really, really cool place. South Luangwa, unspoiled, really, really cool. Who has been to Madagascar?
Last year, October.
Yeah, where did you go? Which areas?
All around,
Incredible place.
except the area of
Oh, down south, yeah. Okay. I went to Madagascar last year. I went from the Masai Mara, private guide to Madagascar, and then we went to South Luangwa afterwards. Cool combination if you want to try it. In all honesty, I did not expect all that much from Madagascar. I mean, I'm used to lions and leopards and elephants and 22 different mammal species. What am I going to find in Madagascar? What mammal comes to mind? You can't say. You've been there. And what else? Yes. Come on. Details, macro. Anybody does macro photography? Anybody shoot mirrorless? Okay. Mirrorless macro for me is beautiful. We'll show you. So Madagascar for me, I went to two places. Andissa Bay is kind of up northeast, and Akanonofi is a little bit further to the east. These things are phenomenal. They are absolutely phenomenal to photograph. There's about 19 different lemurs in the two places we visited. They are not tame, but in most places, they don't really have predators. The fossa, which is their one main predator, is down in the south. So they are super chill. They'll sit and watch you from this far. Then on some of the places, there's these little islands where you go. So photographically, you can photograph with a 1635 all the way to a 300. And they're really close. The photography is unbelievable. I was very, very blown away by this place. Say again? Dancing, yeah, the dancing safaka. It's not actually dancing, they actually don't walk well. So they jump off and then they do like a sideways thing. Photographically, very, very cool to play with. The nice thing here is, and I found just from a teaching point of view out in the field, on a safari vehicle, if I'm with you on a safari vehicle and there's crossings and leopards running and elephants pressing water, it can be a little bit overwhelming photographically. Where should I focus? There is the crowned lemur, let's do this. But wait, if we stand over here, we're changing the foreground because I'm shooting through thickets. The photographic agility, if you will, in this place, absolutely ridiculous. And then there's all of this. Now, I don't have a macro lens. This is with the 40-150 Olympus, OMD EM1 Mark II. Because the focusing distances are small and there's a 4/3 sensor, the stuff you can do on a small level is just amazing. And again, we do walks both in the day and in the evening in the forest. So if a chameleon is over here, right, and I'll show you an image later on, you can literally walk around it. Don't touch, we don't do that. Yeah, walk around and choose your shots. Sun coming through the trees, angle, light on the side of the face. It is unbelievable. And some of my clients on this trip, just with this thing, because you can get really cool up close. Evenings, Parsons chameleon, that's about from here to there, that big. It's huge. It's massive. Big thing. Phenomenal. If you ever see images of these things, sometimes they go like a bright blue and a bright yellow. So from an ease of use, photography point of view, if you come to Africa sometimes you need big glass. Here you can get away with macros and or just like mirrorless gear. Really cool destination. Now, this next thing. How many of you have seen the movie Madagascar? I like to move it, yeah? Okay, do you remember King Louis? Yeah? His apprentice person, the small thing that was with him, Maurice. Yeah? Now, Maurice was based on this following creature. There's more or less 100 of them in the world. Because they only live in Madagascar. They are critically endangered because of the way they look. A lot of the locals believe they're evil and they try and kill them. Right? It's called an eye. The most bizarre thing I've photographed in my life. And they're not small. This thing's about this big without the tail. So, they reckon Maurice from Madagascar is based on this. Also Yoda from Star Wars. That's the inspiration. Yoda's prettier, but still, the idea came from there. So on one of the islands in Palmerium, they had a population of these things on a little island there, but the people started killing them because of how they look. So we go in the evenings to this little area where they dug a trench as wide as this room because they can't swim at all, nothing. So they dug this trench and they know there's a population of those things there and they put these feeding station things out. I went there for 3 evenings, we hit once. But 100 of them in the world, it's pretty special. Interesting photography. Again, even though there was a station out, didn't see it all the time. They're not just there. But the cool thing, so here, this is what I was speaking about. Did you see many, on your Madagascar trip, many chameleons?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Some of them are small as your thumbnail, literally things like this, to the Parsons, which is massive. What we did here, so I put my clients on the other side. So there's my chameleon, see how this works. Please stand. She's on that side. I put a light on this side, so she's photographing room lighting. I said to her, keep shooting. And while she's shooting, you take the light, she's photographing from that side. All the time until you get to this side. One animal, one sighting, 300 different shots. You can do that there. I was pleasantly surprised by Madagascar. So if you look at something different, it's worth a look. Really, really interesting. Anybody been in this place? Now, if you don't like bugs and very, very interesting insects, don't go there. There's some nasty things in those forests, but the photography and also humidity. But you guys are used to humidity in summer, huh? No, it's like bring it on. No, the humidity in this place. So we went to those 4 destinations. Second oldest rainforest in the world. It's old and ancient. You can stand in there and close your eyes and you can feel this place. It's just like, it's a stunning feeling. Photographically, landscape, everything to small things. Primates, proboscis monkey. Interesting one. What they do here is you get the palm oil plantations, which is now unfortunately being made next to the rainforest. So what they did here, so the little thing they're trying, is in between, and photographically this works for us, they've got the palm oil plantation on this side, you've got the forest on this side, and they're not kind of taking this down. They've said, okay, we need to stop this for obvious reasons, and they built these feeding stations along the border where these things come together. So the proboscis monkeys and a whole bunch of others don't have to go in to the plantations. They stay closer and away from it. So we're trying to minimize that human-animal conflict. It's an interesting thing. I'm not sure how successful it is. I saw this last year, but great idea. And you, as a photographer, good chance. Go to the these platforms built into the forest. Night stuff, also amazing. Walk in the forest in the evening. Now, you don't have to touch anything when you walk in this forest. They've got these raised platforms built through the forest, and you can walk through. A light, like on your phone, the little flashlight, or a little headlight, and photography. Some cool stuff. Amazing birding. Amazing birding. Question for you guys. How many of you know what is the most poached bird in the world? We know pangolin and rhino, bad. Most poached bird in the world is family to this thing. So that's a rhinoceros hornbill. African hornbills, if you've seen them, about yay size. Yeah? That thing sitting without its tail is probably about there. Big bird. There's one called the casqued hornbill, which is a bigger thing on top. Most poached bird in the world, and nobody even knows it exists. It's a very sad thing. They're poaching it to make ornaments of this thing. Bad. Also from Borneo. Primates, up close. There's about 15, 16 species of primates, and they're curious. You're in the boats, for example, through the river. You're walking through the forest all the time. I'll show you something challenging now, though, which is a bit tough. Just as scale, some of the photographic things you can do here. This is Gomatong Caves. 2 of my clients here for scale, right? And up. That cave at Gomatong Caves produces about $3.5 million a year for the local community. Because there are swifts that makes nests, bird nest soup. Comes from there. Now, obviously there's all do we, should we, can we, must we, but the community manages it. They literally, without any safety stuff, climb up these ropes, harvest, and come down. There's security on the outside and stuff when you go in. So photographically, we did some very cool slow exposure stuff inside that cave, but it's an interesting story. Bird nest soup. Anybody had it before? I haven't. No. Interesting thing. The most difficult animal I've photographed in my life ever is a gibbon, that thing. Anybody photographed a gibbon before or seen one? Yeah? They are ridiculous. They move like Spider-Man. No Spider-Man? No. Moves like that. You are shooting. Now think about this photographically. Early morning is when they move around. So they wake up, they go forage around. They are never on the floor. They're only in trees. 100% up there. It's early morning. You're photographing pretty dark situation. Then suddenly they pop and it's a bright situation. They're behind things. They're very fast moving. And you're sitting at ISO 6400 already. Very, very, very challenging. The interesting thing with a forest like this is you want a 600 f4. You don't want to carry it around though, because you're walking for 6-7 hours around. Interesting shots, amazing to watch photographically. Really, really difficult. These things are easy though. They're just there. Square-headed lizards. This, photographically for us, so I had on this particular trip last year, Borneo, 2 hardcore wildlife photographers. Like if they don't see at least 5 elephants and 3 leopards every day, there's issues, right? That's how hardcore we are. They've got the skywalk in the Dunham Valley, where it feels like something from Star Wars. You're up in these things. You're between 40 and 60 meters up in between the trees. We're looking for orangutans. We didn't see a single thing. We didn't see a bird this morning. Nothing. Yet, my 2 hardcore wildlife photographers, best part of their trip was that. Now that comes back to your expectations before. I'm going to go on a wildlife safari. I want to photograph wildlife. There's so much more. Don't dismiss the other stuff. So you walk from this one platform to the next platform to the next. I'm sure if you see something from there, it must be great, but that's what we were hoping for, the orangutans. Anybody seen them in the wild before? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful to see. Chill, relaxed, awesome. They are so quiet sometimes that you'll be walking through the forest, they've got these little trails, and he'll be sitting in the bush where you are. And it's like, hey, okay, and then you can photograph from there. But also, tough photography, because it's super dark in there, super, super dark, and you're always shooting through something. You need to understand high ISO, shutter control, and focus points. If you hit the wrong leaf, nothing's going to happen. Has anybody done gorillas? Where did you go? Rwanda? Uganda. Okay. Anybody keen to do gorillas? It is very, very awesome. Now, let's talk about the two. We'll show both and we'll look at the differences. Volcanoes National Park. The photography at base level. So your two lenses, if you ever do gorillas, 24-70, 7200. You want the 2.8 because, again, it's dark in there. If you have to choose one, take the 7200 because of distances and kind of portraits. Think about it as well. If you see these things for the first time, at 24-70, even close-up, gives you a lot of background, right? But the backgrounds in the forest can be super messy. So you want to be able to kind of pull in just a little bit. They are absolutely magnificent to photograph. And yes, you get close. I've seen grown men cry because the gorilla would want to go through here and start walking, kind of just push people out the way. And Murray looks up at me and he's just like, oh, I can't believe this. It is truly bucket list. It is truly, truly bucket list. Up close. We'll talk about chimpanzees in a second. Have you seen chimpanzees in the wild? Scary as hell. Chimpanzees. Man, I'll tell you about them in a second. These things up close are quite, it's almost angelic when you see them. It is truly, truly special. Incredible animals. And this distance, again, is from Seth to myself. That's what you're looking at here. So I'm going to fill the frame. Babies, think of your focus points, just photographically speaking. There's a lot of foliage happening. You need to make sure your focus point and depth of field is on point, otherwise you're going to struggle with it. The detail is phenomenal. Hands, sleeping. They don't care that you're there because it's done correctly, right? So this is from the lodge looking out. So that's the Volcanoes National Park. The gorillas basically live on the outsides of that. And then you go walking up and down and so on. Now, just Uganda is the other place where, well, there's 3 countries where you can do the gorillas. In Rwanda, how long ago did you do? 89. How long ago? 17. So in 2000 and, I think it was 17 actually, Rwanda on the 6th of June said, our prices per permit was $750 for your hour with the gorillas. Right? Now that's walking up and giving coffee and the whole thing. 6th of June is now $1,500. Thanks for playing. So if you do 3, you're in $4.5 grand already before you even got on a plane. Good experience, great experience, but if you're going to go to Rwanda now, there's only gorillas. So if it's a once-off, go to gorillas, that's fine. You can do the Genocide Museum, which is deep and harsh and scary and real. But from a wildlife point of view, there's gorillas. You can do golden monkeys and stuff like that. Uganda, next door, works on the same Virunga mountain mass. So just on the side, you also get different reserves more. So Kibale, chimpanzees. Elizabeth National Park, general game, like Masai Mara, Serengeti. Not as much, but pretty good, and good for tree climbing lions. And then Bwindi Impenetrable Forest is where you would see the gorillas. So we'll start from the top. Chimpanzees. Now, I know how to track animals, right? We go in, we look for tracks, and we kind of track them, yes? So the first time I get to chimpanzees, 3 years ago, now we're on foot, right? So we get our gear and we walk, and our gorilla, or our chimp guy just stops. So I'm standing at the back. I'm always at the back of the group, kind of checking out what. And he's just standing there. What? So I go to him and say, listen, what are we doing here? He says, no, we're tracking. So I'm thinking, you're doing what? You're just standing. They track just by audio. Because when those things wake up, and the families in Kibale is between like 80 and 150 strong. That's a lot of chimpanzee. So when they start waking up, they de-nest. They make nests every evening. They'll come down, and then they start foraging and fighting and playing and mating and doing whatever the hell else. Right? So you hear them in that forest. They are noisy and busy and all over the show. Photographically, obviously amazing. The stuff you can get in between the chaos is just incredible. They are cute. They are very photographable. if you're into human photography, i.e. portraits, you need to do these guys. Because it's not right to say he's sad, he's happy, whatever, but the way you approach your photography, the chin, this guy just got beat up by the big boss. They called him, I think they called him Big Boss. But he was sitting off to the side, kind of sheltered. So you can't help but see it as an emotional thing, right? Photographically brilliant. This guy was the guy that beat him up, right? Not a pleasant animal. Beautiful to photograph. So I've been charged in the past just because of what I've done, not on trips, when I was still a guide, by leopards and elephants and stuff, and it's cool. It's pretty cool, actually, right? Charged from this thing. A couple of years ago, we photographed. Now, he's far. I mean, double the distance to where John and them are sitting at the back. Photographing this, and one of my clients walked this way. He didn't see there's a stick under the foliage. He stepped on the stick. The thing popped there, and this chimpanzee took offense to this. Comes at you there, then he's up over here, then he's behind you because they just use trees, right? But photographically, it's awesome. Who wants to do chimpanzees after I sold it to you like that? It's awesome. The cool thing, if you ever do chimpanzees, it's 100% safe, is video more. If I can go back again, I would video more because of the sound and the noise and the interaction. It's pretty cool. So a nice combination. I mean, like I said, I'll send this to you. If you want to do Uganda, chimpanzees into Queen Elizabeth National Park. They've got beautiful waterways and stuff, birds, skimmers, tree climbing lions, and then do gorillas at the end. I spoke to someone at the travel show recently, and they wanted to do chimpanzees and gorillas. They're both awesome, but who would rather see a gorilla in the wild than a chimpanzee? See, that's the hero shot. So plan your trip kind of that way. In Queen Elizabeth National Park, how many of you have a photograph of a lion in the wild? Photograph of a lion in the wild? Yes? Any of you have a lion in the tree in the wild? Yes? Okay. Damn it. I was hoping nobody put their hands up, but that's awesome. Thank you. No, because this is not usual. Funny enough, though, this population in Ishasha, it's a sector of Queen Elizabeth National Park, Ishasha, for 11 years now, this particular group have been climbing trees. We sat there, and this is the cool thing with photography, is the more you focus on detail. So I do a thing with my clients in the field where I'll say, right, I think we did this last year here, actually, proof, then document, then narrative, and then creative. It's still on YouTube if you want to go check that out. But you take a shot of the animal, then you take just a proof shot. It's like when I saw a lion, right? It's a crap shot, but it's just a proof. Then you document the scene nicely, like that. And if it keeps going, you start looking at detail. You zoom in on the feet and the nose and the tail and the ears. And what we saw with these guys, all up in the tree sleeping, so the claws were relaxed, but the nails were halfway out. Lion's nails shouldn't be out. It should be retracted, yes? They were out. So are they evolving? Interesting question. And we only picked that up because photographically, we were deconstructing our subject by looking closer. Interesting population. Very, very interesting population. And then you go to Bwindi Impenetrable Forest. Fantastic, fantastic photography. Honest question, and please put your hand up. Who would not want to do gorillas because you're scared of the walk? It's too far, I'm not fit enough. Yeah? Now, if that's you and you are keen to do gorillas, rather look at Bwindi, because if you go around to Ruhija, which is one of the hikes or starting places, my record there, if you speak to the guides and you arrange it correctly, is 28 minutes from the moment we started our walk until we saw the gorilla on a surface this flat. So it's possible. I can't recommend this highly enough. Gorillas in the wild are fascinating. Absolutely fascinating creatures. Portraiture is just absolutely brilliant. Okay, moving on to Tanzania. 3 main areas I visited. Serengeti, Ngoro Crater, and Nduta. You guys know of these, hey? It's kind of... Actually, this is an interesting question. At the travel shows, and this is now here in the States, when people speak about the Serengeti, are you guys more familiar with Serengeti or Masai Mara? Serengeti, Masai Mara. Give me a Serengeti just to get an idea. More familiar? Masai Mara? Okay, that's interesting. Because a lot of people, when they talk about the Great Migration or East Africa, they just talk about the Serengeti. Ecosystem's the same, because, I mean, the animals traverse across the border, but if you're looking, for example, migration, you want to be in a certain place. We'll talk about that now, but it's one ecosystem. Ngorongoro crater. It's a cauldron of wildlife. So what it is, it's an old volcanic crater. There's one road in and one road out. It's a steep road. Great visuals going down though. But it's 20 kilometers across, and this cauldron has wildlife in it. You know they're there because they don't leave, right? The cool thing here inside, you always have interesting backgrounds. Shots like that, normally the sky would burn midday. Here, you always have this beautiful green background to photograph against. That's pretty neat. So your exposures are so much easier in this place. Strange things happen. Male lions up trees. And again, because we can be mobile and move around, that's the win. I just said to you now, lions don't climb trees really, but now I'm showing you lots of pictures of it. Phenomenal to photograph. Lake Ndutu. Now, we're going to get to the migration in a second. But Ndutu sits in the southern Serengeti, and the wildebeest herds come through as they move. On this particular morning, one or two of the wildebeest died because of going through the river. They got stuck and they drowned. And we were about to go home, and this lioness started walking into the river. The cool thing, and I had this recently, I was teaching I'm going to segue off here. I was teaching a street photography workshop in Chicago now, a week ago. But the idea was, let's take a wildlife photography approach, because you never know what's going to happen. You're moving. You need to be very agile on your settings because things change like this. People basically had their stuff packed away. We were going to the airstrip, right? This happens. Get your stuff out quickly, change settings and stuff. So wildlife photography, I think, as a genre, requires quite a bit of understanding of the technical side of it. Shouldn't scare you away, though. Images you can create are just ridiculous. 2 lions in a tree with a rainbow. I mean, these things happen. Not all the time, but they do. Okay, lions are great going up trees, not so much coming down. Birds, plenty. Bird photographers here? Yeah? What kind of gear are you shooting now?
Well, I have the biggest lens I have is a 1200.
For birds, perfect. Beautiful stuff. Lillian's lovebirds, there were thousands, but photographically, really good to check it out. And then this is on here. This is driving away from the crater back towards our camp. Literally just a quick boom. The potential out there is insane. Okay, Kenya, soft spot for this place. How many of you have been? Who's been to Kenya? Dixon, put your hand up. Okay, Dixon's our camp manager. He lives there, so that's cool. Okay, Kenya itself, I mean, this is some of the areas that we visit often and I would highly recommend photographically. Amboseli, soft spot for that place. If you want to see elephants, go to Amboseli. It is the one where you look out onto Kilimanjaro, elephants in the front, but you see elephants all the time. You can almost in Amboseli stop at any given time, and I kid you not, look around and you'll find elephants. It's that cool. They've got the dry lake bed, Lake Amboseli, which is dry. There is nothing there except for one occasional animal coming past. It's like photographing on the moon. It is beautiful. But the Masai Mara. Masai Mara, who's been? Where did you guys stay in the Masai Mara? Curious? Can you remember? Let's start here. Start in the front, yeah.
That was at your camp.
Yes.
I went to Mara North Conservancy.
Mara North Conservancy?
Serena.
Serena? Anybody else? Serena as well. The Masai Mara, we've been going there now for 9 years. 8 years? Hold on, 8 years. And after the first 2 years, I started thinking when I tell guests about it, and you have to go to this place to photograph, at some stage we're going to swing and miss in this place. Yet to happen. It is the perfect storm for wildlife. It is absolutely incredible. And not just during the migration time, throughout the year. So things like this, because of location of where you are, time of year, understanding the place, the photographs you can get, landscapes or up close, is insane. Another wild animal that has a bigger Facebook following than all of us combined, Scarface, yeah? Up close stuff. Balloons, up from the top, looking down. Balloons, looking down. This is non-migration stuff I'm showing you now. This is not during the peak season. This is just normal, right? Now we go into some of the migration. Panning shots, love that stuff. If you want to look more at the technical side of it, Google technically creative wildlife photography on YouTube, and you'll find a presentation on that. But this is what it's about. You've seen the migration, yes? Hands up. Yes, yes, yes. Difficult or easy to photograph? Should be actually quite easy, because there's so much. You can just point and shoot, go grrr, download into Lightroom, choose one, and it'll be pretty impressive. If you want to start going deeper on your photography, maybe it gets a bit more tough. Scene like this, slow shutter speed, 1/30, and there's a little bit of movement. This is where the wildebeest are trying to get out the river. So I've done a podcast and a blog on how to photograph a river crossing. There's 5 sections: the gathering, the down, the entry, the crossing, the exit. And if you photograph them in pieces, it becomes a lot easier to kind of break down. But scenes like that happens all the time. You get to a crossing, there's a bit of dust, early morning, there's light rays. It's beautiful. It is. If you're looking for action photography and animal and environment photography and close-up photography and other types of photography, I'll tell you about this now, this is where you want to be. Okay, now, a disclaimer before we run this next one. If you are horrified by blood and guts, you might not want to watch this one. I also apologize for the audio. This is from one of our guests, my sister actually. She was shooting at our camp. We did a little documentary on the camp, right? So she photographed the staff and this and that and the other. Now, this happened in November last year. And the reason I put this in is we're going to talk about it photographically and we'll talk about it kind of emotionally. It was, I don't know, Thursday afternoon. It's been a good drive heading back to camp. As they get past an area called the Peninsula, if you've been to the Mara Triangle, best crossing point in the Mara by miles, right? 7 zebra come to the top of the hill. So Jimmy, our guide, says, well, let's hang around for a while. Jimmy's an amazing guide. 1 zebra runs down to the water. Someone says, is they going to cross? No, they won't cross, not that time of year. They sit for a little while, nothing happens. As they start pulling away, the zebra decides to go into the water. Now, if you've been to the Mara and you've looked at what hides in the river, there's crocodile, there's stuff like buses with legs. They're huge. So what happens in this instance, this lone zebra, for some reason, the crocodile's visible. It's there. Zebra goes in, goes across, and literally steps on the crocodile. Now, if someone steps on you while you're sleeping, you're going to react, yes? Crocodile bites at zebra, gets zebra over here. Zebra pulls loose. Zebra runs back out and up the hill. So, there's 2 parts to the story. One of my clients, he's got 1DX2 and a 600. You'll hear it goes grrr. He must have filled a 64 gig memory card on the way up. Subsequent to those images, he's posted it on Facebook and Instagram. He's been published in, I think, Nat Geo Africa and because of the visuals that he created from that sighting. Gruesome as it is. I posted this video, my sister's video she was filming. I posted it on my Instagram and I got hate mail again. Why don't I save the zebra? It doesn't work that way. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you the same question when we're done here. How many of you would like to photograph predator on prey interaction in the wild? I'm going to put my hand up. Okay, hands down. Who would not want to? Okay, maybe close your eyes for this one. Okay, so this is as it happened in the Mara. Excuse the audio. They were very excited in the vehicle. Okay.
Bite.
The crocodile just reacted.
Ooh, but, no.
This is wild. This is nature. Yes?
Look at the blood, look at the blood. Holy shit!
Okay, excuse the audio. Now, I'm going to ask you the question here. What happened there? Now, zebra got to the top, and literally 2 seconds later, it fell over. Gone. So, if we look past the pain and whatever, adrenaline and so on and so forth, right? We came back. So these people, there were 3 of the guests in the car. They then came back to camp. They could not stop talking for an hour about how amazing this was. Hold that thought. How amazing it was, right? I put the other guest who missed this in the car. We went back. It was gone. The way that the Masai Mara recycles hyenas, vultures, it's incredible. Now I'm going to ask you again. How many of you would like to photograph a scene like that? I'm going to put my hand up. Okay. Who would still not like to? Okay. So, These things don't happen all the time. But I believe that when they do, and as a nature and wildlife photographer, when that happens, you should be ready either to photograph or to look away. It's really that simple, right? But, the people then, I mean, literally, I get hate messages on Instagram. Why didn't you save the zebra? What do you want me to do? I mean, that's what happens. If I was there or not, if my guests saw that or not, it would still have happened, right? We don't always have the privilege of understanding it. We just have the privilege of witnessing it.
Something happened in LA when someone came up to me
Yeah?
and she said,
Sorry, Jono, my partner from Wild Eye.
there's no way she wants to photograph something dying or something being eaten.
Yeah.
No way, that's why she didn't want to happen. So I said, the one thing, well, that's not a great choice, but I said, when you are there, when you are in the environment, when you get to understand the environment and
Translate
how
now.
the environment works,
Yeah.
it actually changes people's opinion.
Sure.
Because you're in nature, it's all very well, you see it on here, or you see
Yeah.
it on TV, but when you understand it, when you're in the environment,
Mm.
it actually gives it a lot more context and makes sense.
100%. Just also then for the guys online, so what John was saying is people in LA asked, doesn't want to see that, but then the explanation of understanding the circle of life and understanding the situation and the context, it becomes a thing. Like I said earlier on, I've had people on safari who see stuff like this, like I just showed you now, and they're photographing and crying at the same time. Right? Now, let me ask you this. Many moons from now, when that lady who was crying and photographing at the same time, 20 years from now, is she going to remember the photograph she took at that moment? Probably not. Is she going to remember the experience of being in the wild? And that's the gold. That, to me, is the win. Anyway, the Masai Mara is also about pretty skies, right? So there's a whole bunch more. The diversity in this place is absolutely amazing. Shots like this and shots like this. Where our camp is in the Masai Mara, every evening we drive down south. So as we're driving with you down south, to the west the sun is setting. And the Mara has these rolling hills. Rolling hill, subject on hill, sun behind it, gold. We, on the photography workshop that I ran there, we scripted this every single night. We would decide around about 6 o'clock. Now, 10 past 6, because we had to be back at camp at 7. 10 past 6, are we in a sighting that's going to produce good for us, photographically speaking? If not, we drove to this spot. Both this and that is exactly the same place, but different evenings. You script this. There's a tree just to the side. So if you want the tree silhouette, you want the lion silhouette if you're lucky, the cheetah, and. I think in the last year that we've had the campsite where it is, we've had every single silhouette up there. I'm still missing leopard though. You had leopard up there? No. So we're still waiting. But it's scripted. And that's the thing is, what I say to people, if you're going to go to a safari destination, sorry, a wildlife destination, do your homework before. Go in, and I've said to people, you and I are going to talk still in the week, Laurie, because Laurie's coming for the first time to Africa. Go and look at my images and see what is your photographic mind attracted to. Do you want these kind of images? Do you want the zebra? If anybody, not you, you don't want that. Okay, cool. Then that needs to be your starting point because it'll help you to choose where to go, when to go, but also when you're in the field, your photographic mind will have a frame of reference. When I went to do polar bears for the first time, we'll get there in a second, I watched videos and movies and stuff because if you know how these things move, you can better photograph them. It just works. But we'll get there. That is the gold. Now, like I said at the beginning, my wife always gave me a hassle because I didn't photograph with enough people. I'm like, I don't care. I just want a lion. I don't care. Then I went to Kenya. And when John and I went for the first time in 2011, we started our own camp there. And Isaac and Dixon was involved since the very beginning. And the guy said to us in the first time, they would like to say thank you for kind of the opportunity and working together in this. And Dixon and Tenke, Isaac, you were there as well, they did a song and a dance thing for us around the fire, like a Maasai ceremony. I was sitting there thinking, holy shit, this is insane. Literally. At all lodges in Africa, they do some kind of traditional dance or a this or a that. this blew my mind. So subsequently, it's become such a big thing for us that these evenings is the last evening of our safari, right? So the guys do a goat on the fire. Who's had goat before? Yeah, nice. Who would like goat? Ah, nice. That's cool. Normally it's like, no, I can't do that. It's amazing. So they do goat on the fire. The Maasai guys share culture. You've got Q&A. And it's not the kind of culture where, okay, why do Maasai wear red? Pay me $5. It's not a commercial thing, right? These guys are legit. It's real. It's like you're at their home. And then we spend a time around the fire in the evening. What we realized is that as this all was happening, wildlife, hardcore wildlife and nature photographers were so into photographing the moment that they didn't actually experience it, right? So what we started doing is middle of the week, I would say to my photographers and my guests, right, who's keen? Let's do this kind of photography. Build a big fire, and then we do a workshop around the fire. This has changed me and photography so much that I now, on all my trips, look for other ways to tell the story of the place. This kind of photography, to me, that is just insane. And I've got people who, I mean, I'm thinking of Dennis and those guys. They would never photograph anything else. They wouldn't even photograph a mammal if it was under 20 kilograms. It has to be a big animal, right? Now, these guys are laying on the floor next to a fire in the Masai Mara, next to the Mara River, photographing stuff like this, and immediately WhatsApping it home. Sorry, Americans, you don't use WhatsApp much, eh? No? Yes. Some? Message. It's a messaging thing that you get on this device. No, I'm joking. Okay, so, but that's what's happened, is the wildlife is the hero, but the supporting actors are so strong. Can't help. It's incredible. Absolutely amazing. Right, let's moving on. Up north, 2 destinations. British Columbia. Has anybody been to the Great Bear Rainforest? No. I would highly recommend, there's a movie that just came, like in the last week to 10 days. If you're not following him on Instagram, Ian McAllister, he works and lives up in that part of the world, and they've just released the IMAX movie, The Great Bear Rainforest. The place for me, I've had the privilege of traveling a lot, that overwhelmed me completely was Svalbard. We'll talk about this next. From a beauty point of view and the diversity, the Great Bear Rainforest, which is off British Columbia's north coast, unbelievable. Just a few examples of, and then we'll show you the heroes there. Sea otters, how cool. These cute little whole pebbles, and amazing. Stellar sea lions. So on these trips, we go on a yacht, myself, 8 guests, we go up the coast. If we see something cool, we go and we walk. If we see something in the water, we get on the Zodiac and we go, or we shoot from the boat. The diverse, again, it comes back to photographic portfolio. Mac, just walking in the rainforest, all on one trip. The scale of this place, Zodiac, going into the estuaries, going to look for grizzlies and black bears, going in. The mornings, and again, the amount of and these are hardcore photographers that sit there and they film as they go. They're not taking images, they're filming as they go, because the experience is incredible. So grizzlies you get often, 2 little scrubby youngsters, in the rain. Again, we didn't put our cameras away. Black bears in the rain, pretty awesome. Bubble net feeding. I've never seen humpback whale action like in the Great Bear Rainforest off the coast. Breaching black whale. Humpback whale. It's a different one. Now, what made shots like this possible, just from a tech point of view, the Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II. Has anybody tried it before? What do you think? Pretty neat, eh? Pro Capture. Wow. What Pro Capture is, for my bird photographers as well, to get a breaching image like this, of a whale bursting out of the water, is not easy. Whales leave footprints. If you look at how they go, they'll go small, small, and then pop the fluke and go deep. But when they wave the tail under the water, they make a footprint. So you get an idea of where they're going. But if you have to sit and wait, it's basically like you going to sit out in the road, and somewhere around you, something's going to burst up, and you're going to photograph it. Not going to happen. So if you have more or less an idea, on the Olympus, they've got what's called Pro Capture. So you focus, and you half depress your shutter button. While you are half depressing your shutter button, the camera is writing 35 frames into memory. It's not saving it yet. If I release and I do not make the image, nothing happens. However, if I half depress and I shoot, it shoots my image going forward, but also saves the 35 before I started shooting. Bird photographers, birds taking off. How many birds have you tried to photograph on a stick? And as the bird goes, you go, brrr. Nothing, 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 blur in the corner. That's just what it is, right? But these kind of, so the fun we had, I had a couple of people on this trip shooting Olympus and Mirrorless. The fun we had with the breaching whales, 4 hours at a time. And these things just keep on going and going and going. Ridiculous whale action. But, has anybody heard of a spirit bear or a Komodo bear? There's about 400 of them in the world. Now, the sad thing here, let's just go there for a second. Grizzly hunting was outlawed or stopped, I think last year, November or something, right? Way back. Black bears, not yet. That is a black bear. It's got a double recessive gene, and they're called either a spirit bear or a Komodo bear. So, just from a hunting point of view, not a fan, but that's what it is. But these things, this was the first one I ever saw. Absolutely incredible. Now, just from a behavior point of view, which is cool, when they hunt, they look for salmon during the spawning time. We sit on the side, and if you watch this IMAX movie, you'll see these scenes. It's amazing. You sit on the side of this creek. Now the salmon are going upriver to go spawn. The bear walks down against the salmon and then up and around. And they circle around a couple of times. The white bears tend to be more successful because if you're a fish under and you're looking up at a white or a black bear against this bright sky, yeah, makes sense. Absolutely incredible photography. And it's not just the subject. This, to me, is animal in environment. It's not a baby polar bear, so you have to show that. Amazing place. So just, I mean, I'm all about African skies, but this was, so our boat's over here, docked on the side, a couple around, but you make the experience as you go. The photography, you can use everything, from a phone to a GoPro to a 600. Anything, and you will walk away with incredible diversity. Great Bear Rainforest, check out the IMAX movie. I can't wait to see it. I've seen some of the trailers and stuff. It looks amazing. But as a destination for portfolio building, check it out. Pretty cool. This is one of my favorite places in the world. Has anybody been there? Please put your hand up. No? Who would like to go there? Everybody put your hand up. Great. Okay. So Svalbard is right up 3 hours north of mainland Norway. It's also called Spitsbergen sometimes. The only time Svalbard's been mentioned in pop culture recently, a couple of years, is in the movie called The Golden Compass. A little while, a couple of years ago. Ring a bell? Nicole Kidman, I think, was in there. And in there they mention Svalbard, which is the kingdom of the polar bear. Now, leopards. Remind me who's seen a leopard in the wild? Okay, what was it like, take yourself back, seeing your first leopard in the wild or your first elephant in the wild ever? That, to me, on a safari that I'm hosting with clients, and Laurie, I can't wait to share this with you, being in the field and seeing the first elephant and it's here, that is special. Leopard, elephant, take your pick, whatever your species, like squirrel, it's like, squirrel, that's fine. But lion or leopard or something big, right? I can remember, and Johnny, you were on this trip with us, when I saw my first polar bear ever. What I was wearing, what the camera was, that's how special this was. Svalbard is the Arctic, and I don't rate myself as a landscape photographer. You cannot help yourself here. You can stand, so what we do, the archipelago is like a triangle, Svalbard, Spitsbergen, right? Longyearbyen is the little town between, that's where you fly into. There we board a little icebreaker called the Stockholm, only 11 guests and myself, and then we sail out and up north. You want to get to the top of the coastline of Svalbard, because that's where the polar ice cap comes in, up and down. What do bears eat? Seals. Where do seals live? Ice. What do seals need to get through the ice? Either a gap in the ice or holes in the ice. So where it breaks up, that's where all of this happens. The visual beauty of this place, you can stand on the deck outside and photograph things like this, I shit you not, 24/7, all the time. It is just there. Now, from a flight point of view, I don't like to sit against the window. I like aisle seats on a plane, just because, right? The only time I will ever fight for a window seat is flying into this place, because you fly over this, it feels like you're stepping into a movie. You go on foot, and you walk in probably the most wild and isolated and beautiful and amazing place you can imagine. You're not allowed to go walking if there's a polar bear. You're not allowed. There's two animals that will kind of hunt you to eat you, crocodile and polar bear. Yeah? So when they see a polar bear, no go, you can watch it from the shore. But the cool thing from a diversity point of view, people, and people who want to come with me to Svalbard say, but what else is there? I don't want to just see polar bears. Well, I do. No, there's a whole bunch more. I mean, walrus, reindeer, Arctic fox, and so on. But along these coastlines, there's history like I've never heard. It goes back all the way, Russian mining towns, and it's incredible. All the polar explorers, Amundsen and Andre, go and read up, Shackleton, all these things. Amazing stories. But you've got these kind of scenes. So we get out, you photograph polar bears in the afternoon, Arctic foxes over evening, and then 2 o'clock in the morning, because the sun is always up, remember the sun doesn't go down this time of year, you photograph stuff like this. Ice. I think diversity, because I see too many people going on a photographic wildlife trip, and then afterwards they share it on their website, and it's just lion portraits and leopard portraits. There's so much more. We need to think more. This is literally just walking, getting off on a beach, going to walk. There's a piece of ice. Click. What's that? Looks like an ice cave. Huh? It's not. That ice was about yay big. Super wide angle, bend down, stick it in there and make the image. Yeah? Think diversity again. Portfolio. Top of the mountain. Just ice and snow. You've got these trappers' cabins from a landscape point of view, which if you've got the beautiful light, there's not just wildlife. It's an expedition. From start to finish, it's expedition photography. If you want birds, you can have those. They're like little bullets. Very, very quick, but so cool to photograph. Reindeer? Now, who's seen reindeer in the wild? You must have, yeah? Now, this is Svalbard reindeer. They're short and fat and they don't run fast because they've never had predators. Polar bears sometimes goes for them, but they are so chill that every year so far, I've done this for 7, I think this is year 8, every year we get some interaction because they're not used to predators. So you walk, you sit down, they're curious. Last year was ridiculous. I mean, Sasha, one of my clients, on the floor. Now the irony for my photographers here, look at what lens he's got on. It's 100-400. He was shooting that entire trip with a 14mm until this day. Bad. Imagine the 14mm from down there. Oh, would have been amazing. But you do get these guys as well. And they're absolutely incredible to watch and photograph. So this guy, I've always seen movies of them do this. Last year we saw, they literally walk to the top of the ridge, they look around and they just slide down. You can put like cartoon music to it. It literally looks like that. But these things in the wild, especially during early season, kind of beginning May through, well, mid-May to mid-June, because they've been kind of sleeping, if you will, for a very long time. Midnight, dark for like 3 months. They wake up and now they've got to start hunting. The amount of polar bears, and this next one I'm going to show you now, that are hunting for bird eggs and birds' nests this time of year because it's easy. Bird cliffs, chicks' eggs fall off and they eat that initially until they're either close enough to the ice to go and find seals or until they get enough body to swim to wherever they need to be. So the scale is just incredible. So I'm going to show you a little video now. It's squished for some reason. I don't know why. We go to this island. It's called Prince Carl 12, which is the most northeastern spot land in Svalbard, in this archipelago of islands. And we sail around a couple of times because you can't land if there's a polar bear. We don't see anything. We see some tracks, decide to go. It's cool. We get on. We go do our walks up and down, see the tracks, there, that, do some landscape, some ice photography, get back in the boat, sail back to our icebreaker. As we start sailing away, we just got hot chocolate. Best hot chocolate in the world when you come back. Hot chocolate. And Bo, one of our expedition leaders, shouts, polar bear. She was sleeping somewhere on this island, right? So we go back, and photographers, notice the dark background, right? Just ridiculous. So we got our 2 Zodiacs, only 5 people Zodiac, go in closer. So there's an iPhone video which I couldn't get to squish properly. So this is us, there's another Zodiac over here. Now this is one of those examples again. Deborah's not here tonight, no. Deborah was one of my clients. She was shooting brand new Olympus at the time. So the polar bear is walking on the ridge, and you can just, people are just shooting because it's awesome. And Deborah says to me, can I help her with something? Cool. So I put my stuff down. I take the camera. I'm doing settings for her and explain back button, what. Give it back to her. As I bend down to pick my camera up and I look up, this happens. How's about a bit of a charge? You can't really see the depth in this. She came, it was her, maybe from me to you guys, right?
And I have it on video.
Thanks, Adele. My wife has it on video. She's very proud.
Yes.
So that charging shot, almost every single one of the clients got. It's amazing. And even though, and in all honesty, in that moment, I'm sitting bent over, holding my camera on the floor, looking at this, I'm thinking, you're kidding, really? But then we get back onto the ship and people are downloading and there's this buzz of excitement of, oh my goodness, look at this. So we spent another, oops, sorry, not that yet. We spent about an hour with her as she walked the entire length of this island. And that's easy shooting because now people are settled in. The charge is like, panic, but now it's walking. Now you can settle in and just do your thing, right? So she went all the way. The island is 1.5 kilometers in length. What's it, about a mile? Yeah, it's 1.6. And eventually she came to the end and slept. We had her on the top of this ridge every once in a while, walking up, walking down, walking up, walking down. And this last image I have for you guys is pretty much my favorite. It's this one, my favorite of the last year. By show of hands, my photographers, please. How many of you in the field, when you're shooting, whether it's wildlife or landscapes or people or street, when you go click, you just know? How many of you know that? When you hit that button, you know, I'm done. You don't even have to look. I'm done, right? This image was one for me, but I didn't want to show it like this. So the cool thing was that I did this conversion on the ship with the clients, and then we did all of it together. Because the idea behind, for me and for us as Wild Eye, what we do is I want to take you into the field and not just give you the opportunity to photograph wildlife. And I believe this. If you decide to travel with someone else as well, that's fine. But it needs to be the experience, first of all. The experience of being out there photographing the world that we live in. Number two, you should learn something. You should learn something about an animal, the behavior, the ecosystem or conservation, and or the photographic side of things. And third, for me, is good images. If you are ever going to photograph wildlife and nature, and you judge the success of your trip on the images you get, I personally think you're going to fail. You're going to leave something on the table. You can't. There's just too much out there. Now, I'm going to leave this quote with you because for my photography, who is on Instagram again? Who has an Instagram account? Yeah? Let me ask you this, just digress for a second. How many of you has posted an image today on my Instagram account? Who's posted an image today? Yeah? Last week? Yes. Selfies, hey? No, okay. So but we do this, and I see people on trips do this because as photographers, as creatives and artists, we are so worried about the ego, about what are you going to think about my work, that we do this. So I get an image, I prep it, I put it on my phone, I'm going to post it. So I post my polar bear image, I hashtag it, polar bear, hashtag Svalbard, hashtag Jerry is awesome. I use hashtags, yes, and I post. I close my phone, I carry on. Not 4 minutes later, I've got to go see how many likes I have. And we do this. I've seen people post, like we talk now, they'll check half an hour later. If there's not enough likes, they'll delete the image and post it again later. Like what? That's not right. Because then you're doing photography. You're creating art for the wrong reason. So in all my presentations, photographic-wise, I love this quote. That, to me, is what our craft should be about. You should do it for yourself. You shouldn't care. While people fight and complain about whether it's good or not, you just keep doing your thing. That, to me, is one of my favorite quotes from a creative point of view. Any questions? Photography, travel, wildlife, whatever the case might be. Yes, sir.
Do you have problems with the temperature and the camera not working correctly?
It can be a challenge. is there a problem with temperature and weather and kind of stuff? The biggest problems I've had, funny enough, was in Borneo because of humidity. So to the point where people keep their cameras indoors in the air-conditioned room, the moment you walk out in the morning, everything fogs up. Inside of the lens, back of the lens, mirrors, everything. So what we do there is either you go put it in your bathroom or wake up in the morning at 3 and put your camera bag outside the door. In the Arctic regions, we've had shutters freezing, but not all that much. Batteries go quick, like they just drop. I had a GoPro a couple of years ago in Svalbard. The battery lasted all of 6 minutes. It was an older version, but 6 minutes from fully charged. In Africa and African conditions, not so much. Most of the time would be dirt, so just from changing lenses in the field. But the most malfunctions we've had was in Borneo and in Svalbard. But I mean, it's still, if I look at how many people go, it's a small minority. Yes?
So Africa, March or April, what's...
Africa, March or April?
Yeah.
It's probably either or. I mean, you can go, if any of you are keen, I mean, guys listening online as well, if you want me to send you a slide that I did for the LA show of month by month where the best is, so March and April in most areas we consider kind of shoulder or green season, so it's more thick, more lush, possibly rain, more wet. You can get away pretty much anywhere then, March or April for me. If you had to put a gun against the head, I would say to you, let's push for April, because that gets closer to the winter season when it starts drying up. But I don't think you can see too much difference between those 2 months. Very close together, photographically. Yes?
How do you protect your camera from heavy rain?
Protect the camera from heavy rain. Okay, I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm very bad with this. In my mind, my camera is a tool, and like a hammer is a tool, if you know what I mean. You use it for something. So if I'm vehicle-based, shooting out of a safari vehicle, in Kenya, it's actually pretty easy because the vehicles have the pop-top roof. So I can stand underneath and then shoot out easy enough. In the open vehicles, I've got, I'm sure they sell them here as well, those nice little rain covers, and they're not expensive. That for me would be enough. I've seen people who use these full-on rain covers with Velcro and a strap and a thing for your hand and this and that, and they faff with the thing so much that they actually miss shots. So I try and find, with everything, photography, Lightroom, I find the easiest way. And the easiest way for me is one of those, it's literally got a little, what's it called? Rubber band in front and behind, and off you go. I've also, every single time, always in my camera bag, have normal refuse bags, just black bags. And that's often for clients, just wrap it around and keep shooting. You see, to me, at the end of the day, if I look at an image, if I show you, look at this image, you're not going to say, oh wow, that must have been taken with a Nikon at 1600 ISO and with a rain cover. I do what I need to do, but I don't have a specific, this is my tool. If it's light drizzle and rain, I don't worry about it. Most of today's of the new technology is pretty cool with it. Only exception there would be zoom lens, if you're kind of pumping water in and out, but you can get away with most of it. Yeah. Yes? Yeah. Vaccines in Africa?
Second thing is about on the safari trip, say we are on a jeep.
Yes.
Do we have to bring monocle or something?
Good question. Okay, so from a vaccine point of view for Africa, there are some countries that have requirements. There's, for example, yellow fever, malaria would be recommended for a malaria area. I would do two things. I would chat to your travel doctor and see what they give you, often, quite a bit, and then look at and speak to the operator who's arranging your trip. So what we do is we have a PDF for everything. So if you're going to go to Kenya, these are the requirements, not from a doctor, legally, government-wise, to get in, and reconcile those. Yellow fever used to be every 10 years you have to get it. Now you can get the jab once and you're done. And then malaria would be a recommended one for most areas, something like Malarone or whatever the doctor might prescribe. But I would reconcile doctor against actual requirements of getting into the country, because often the one is way more than the other, and then discuss with your operator as well. Like if you travel with us, my ladies in the office will talk you through that as well. From a monopod point of view, here's the thing. A lot of people come on a safari and on a vehicle. So what we'll do is in southern Africa, right, you have the vehicle which is open on the sides and stuff, and they bring these gimbals. And it takes them half an hour before game drive to bracket and and put this thing up, right? Now, we always stop the vehicle then so that all the guests have the view off the side. This guy's shooting with the gimbal. Now the leopard walks from there to there. Now what? Now it's a mission. In the same way, monopods on a game viewer is difficult because you put it down and you shoot. So you're in the vehicle and you're photographing off the one side. Now the animal walks around. Quiet sighting. We have to be quiet because there's a leopard with cubs walking around. And then your monopod goes, ka, 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 as you move it, and they're just gone, right? So from a support and stability point of view, in Southern African vehicles, it's open, and they've got these bars behind the vehicle, which is foam padding on it. You can either just use that, or you get what we call in South Africa a badger bag. It's a bean bag that does this, and it just sits over. That's the easiest. So most of the vehicles will have some of that. In East Africa, our vehicles all the vehicles drop down. There's a bar you can balance on to shoot, but then you can also stand up and shoot out the top where there's a bar around, and we've got bean bags. So bean bag on a vehicle is the easiest option. Exception would maybe be if you book a private trip and you're looking for one specific thing. Then we can set it up and do gimbals and stuff. But still, the animals they're going to move. So beanbag for me every day of the week. Yeah. Any other questions? Right, so what we can do, I'm going to there's the contact details. If you have any other questions, photography-wise, travel-wise, you want the presentation, you want the quote, I can email to you, let me know. For those of you that are keen, on iTunes, I run a podcast. We're approaching episode 200, which was pretty cool. It's just called the Wildlife Photography Podcast on iTunes and all the other platforms. On YouTube, just look for Wild Eye. You'll find us. There's destinations, Lightroom tutorials, photo tutorials, and so on and so forth. And obviously active on Instagram, very active on Instagram, all of my guides and our company, because we just feel that sharing these things is amazing. Really is. So I'll be around for a little while afterwards. Otherwise, get in touch. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it. Thank you.